hello. My trigger fingers are not working well this morning. Hello and welcome to Redefining the Significance of You Time for You, by you, because of you. My name is Denise Drinkwalter, and I am a midlife renewal coach supporting women worldwide to lean into and realize the importance of you. This channel aims to provide you, the viewer, with some ideas, takeaways, possibilities that will help you shift, change, and or reevaluate what is possible for you. We have a variety of incredible guests sharing their lives and experiences that have helped them become the amazing human beings that they are today. Every one of us has had that infamous free time where, hands up, we frequently might feel guilty, embarrassed, and or wrong for taking time out for ourselves. We are here to change that and support you to see what is possible when you take the time for you, by you, because of you. It is an absolute pleasure and an honor to introduce Phyllis Leavitt to our show today. Phyllis brings a wealth of wisdom and expertise rooted in an impressive 34 years of experience as a psychotherapist. Her journey into this transformative field is both deeply personal and profoundly professional, having dedicated not only years to guiding others, but also to her own personal therapy and growth. As an author of 3 impactful books, Phyllis's most recent work takes an innovative and courageous approach, applying the foundational principles of therapy to address the systemic challenges and deep societal pain that affect our nation today. Her writing is a testament to her belief that healing begins within and radiates outward, whether it's in families, relationships, or entire communities. Over the years, Phyllis has touched the lives of hundreds of individuals, offering hope and healing to those facing trauma, child abuse, and neglect, dysfunctional family dynamics, and the scars of poor conditioning in childhood. She's skillfully helped clients overcome dysfunctional coping skills, navigate relationships, parenting challenges, and confront the weight of societal pain and discrimination. Today, we are fortunate to hear from a true expert in understanding and healing the human spirit. Please join me in welcoming Phyllis to our show today. So great to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's just an honor and a pleasure to talk with you because I think we're on the same wavelength. And it's inspiring, to know that there are so many people out in the world doing podcasts and writing articles and really wanting to share what matters and what people really care about and what actually changes lives.
The thing that I think really, there's so many things I think we're aligned in, but the thing that really resonates for me and is really about what this show's foundational component is about the spirit within, the importance of ourselves. And I know that as women in particular, and I know it's not just, but that's my forte, is supporting women specifically. And when we spend so many of our years of life supporting others, and I don't know if you find this with your experiences, but we put ourselves not even only on the back burner, but not even on the list of possibilities. Is this resonating with you? What's coming up for you as I share?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that was really, it was a big topic back, I guess it was in the 80s. I'm dating myself here. But when they really started talking about codependency, and I'm not really okay unless you're okay. And so I have to make sure that you're okay in the hopes that will lead to me being okay. And of course, that's a bottomless well of giving yourself away without any really regard for your own well-being. And I found myself in that in my first marriage, and thank God for that conversation. Really, thank God for that conversation, because it really, I always had, from very young age, I had a very strong pull to my inner life. But I also felt so flawed on the outside that I was caught up in some of the dysfunctional dynamics that were a result of early childhood trauma and conditioning. And I didn't know how to find a place for that essential self to actually flower in the world. And I think that whole codependent relationship that so many women unconsciously are just pulled into makes it really difficult to focus on our inner world and give it validity and actually know that that's the source of our greatest gifts in the world.
So how does somebody, I mean, I'm sure I will have people reaching out, commenting, reaching out to find you to say, what resonates? What do I do? What's my ability to, I hear what you're saying, this lands perfectly. Now what do I do? I've been thinking about this. I've been talking to other people, but I have no idea. What do I do with this information? How do I move myself from just the awareness? And I don't mean just, because having awareness,
right, is huge.
It's the underpinning of
right.
change. We aren't aware we can't change. But what do I do? How do I begin? What is possible?
Well, there were two things in my life, and other guests probably have other avenues that they'll share. I'll say maybe three things in my life that really provided a great opening. And one of them was to go to therapy. Honestly, I had a lot of trauma in my childhood. It was all buried. I just considered myself a very flawed human being and basically unlovable, and I thought it was all my fault. And there wasn't any language in my growing up to tell me otherwise. And so finally being able to ask for help and really understand, I went to the library immediately. I took out books on psychology, and I got it right away that our early conditioning has everything to do with many of our coping mechanisms, how we present in the world, the relationships we attract, how we behave in relationship, how we parent. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so that was a huge gift that I gave myself, because I think so many people don't know that they're totally fine. We're all born beautiful, essential, innocent, loving, well-equipped human beings. And some of our conditioning buries a lot of our strengths and gifts, or makes us doubt ourselves, or not trust our intuition, or not even feel like we have the right to follow our own gifts and what calls us most importantly in life. So therapy was one, and it was really invaluable for me. The second one was that I've always been a journal writer, and I had to have that communication with myself. And I can't stress that enough for anyone who feels called to journaling, and not everybody is. But if you haven't tried it, someone told me about this exercise when I was probably in my early 30s, of writing out a question and then listening as if your highest self, your heart, however, your soul, however you frame it, responds. And I had such a remarkable experience the first time I did that it became a practice. And I began to have this very deep conversation with my most essential, I would say, spiritual self. And I wrote a lot about that in my first two books, which are A Light in the Darkness and Into the Fire. And that was a whole other level of transformation that was different than psychological work. And then the third one was, follow what you love. Like, we all come into life, many people, and in my generation, I don't know what it's like for young people today, although I don't know that it's different in a different way. But in my generation, you were supposed to become something. You were supposed to become a teacher, or a secretary, or a scientist, or a doctor, or a doctor's wife in my generation. That's what, I wasn't supposed to become a doctor. I was supposed to become a doctor's wife, right? And that's not actually helpful for a lot of people. If you have a love of nature or art or things that somebody might say, oh, you can't make a living at that, do this and do that on the side. But it's just really important, whether it's in your professional life or in your inner life and your own pursuits outside of work or parenting or whatever, to follow what really calls you. Because we all have something, I believe, whether it's gardening or changing the water supply on the planet. It can be something in your own backyard. It can be something universal. It can be something in your community. It can be something with animals. It doesn't matter what it is. We all have a contribution to make. And I don't know that we live in a society that actually looks at us that way. There's certain standards for success, for how much money you have to make, with what you look like in the outer world. And I think a lot of healing work on whatever level, spiritual, emotional, psychological, um, through exercise, however you do it, really takes a person back in touch with who they came in this world to be. And I'll just say this last thing, there's no greater gift. I think there's no greater gift than seeing one another through that lens, not just ourselves, but other people. Who are you? What calls you? And then really shine a light on that for each other, because I know the first time I felt like that happened for me, where somebody really shined a light on who my essential self was, it changed everything. So there's my
I
my
love
thoughts on
that. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and I'm paraphrasing, but please make sure that I'm doing this properly. So if there's any interruption in what you just shared, but the thing that comes out as a huge golden nugget in what you just shared is when you tap into your full, what I call you-ness, your full being of who you really are. And people have heard me say this before, but when you do that, your sphere of influence, the people that are around you and connect with you, will benefit tenfold, 1,000-fold, way more than they can with you bringing the, what I'm going to call the masculine energy, the strategy, the supports, the role playing
Right.
to that relationship. And I love what you shared in terms of when you're able to see your own light, then you can connect with others through their light, and everything just gets energetically elevated for the benefit of all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really think that it opens the door to much more authentic relationship with one another, because we all want to drop the mask that we think we had to wear to look good and be accepted in the world. And the one thing that I would just add to what you said, perfect, I mean, it was a perfect rendition of what I was sharing, is if you feel like you can't get out into the world or express for yourself that deep connection to something essential in you, then ask for help. Because many of us really got buried early on under abuse or neglect or terrible messages about who we were that weren't life affirming. And and what I really understood being a therapist and doing lots of therapy myself was that we really need help sometimes to peel back the layers of what buried what was most precious inside of us. And there's no shame in asking for that help. In fact, it takes tremendous courage and strength. And we need to look at it that way, instead of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. What's wrong with you that you can't just go out there and conquer the world on your own?
Yeah, exactly. I love what you're saying, because it just, again, it dovetails into the purpose of this broadcast, which is for people to redefine not only the significance of you time, for you, by you, because of you, but when you start doing that, then you start to understand the significance of you, not the roles you play. And you were born worthy. You might have quite a lifeline of trauma and issues and problems, and I mean, it's everywhere. It always is. Welcome to humanity. However, when you step into and see yourself for all that you are, which helped you get through all of that and more, it changes the lens, I feel. I don't know if you notice that, but for me, it changes the lens
Absolutely.
completely. Yeah. You
Absolutely.
see how strong you really are. And I think we're too close to ourselves to unveil it totally within all by ourselves. So I love what
Right.
you're saying. Support is huge. I totally agree. I love that.
And the other thing I would add to that, it is huge, and I don't think we're meant to do it alone. We're tribal by nature, even though a lot of our societal messages don't support that intrinsic part of who we came into the world to be. And so it's really part of being a human being and being connected that we can ask for help. We can't do it all on our own, and we weren't meant to. The other really quick thing I wanted to add to that
Yeah.
was one of the things that I have learned and did not know and certainly did not come into adulthood knowing was that the pain that I felt, the places where I felt blocked, the things that I saw and judged about myself, and really which stemmed from hurtful things that had happened to me. I was not born unlovable because none of us are. Um, those things that were really painful became the fuel for my transformation. It's not just like, oh my God, these horrible things happened to me if they did, and how do I just, escape that? But it's actually like the wood that we put in the fire to create the heat and the energy and the light that of who we have the potential to become. So it's
Mm.
all useful. And I think, again, I don't know that we live in a society that really understands that or supports that. Our pain can become our purpose, and that's the best use of it. And I like to say it this way because this is a phrase that was shared with me a long time ago. All pain is soul calling you home. We're being called to become our essential self. And sometimes it's a heroine's journey or a hero's journey to make that
Yep.
that transformation. And every bit of it is part of what we came here to do. That's my belief.
I love that. I 1000% agree with what you just said. It just hit me so, it was perfect. Perfect. Thank you
Mm.
so much for that. Um, you've shared some tips that worked really well for you. Do you have anything particular that you would consider most healing, as we've been just speaking about our past and where we don't resonate anymore and how we want to move beyond and through the pain to grow? Is there anything that you consider most healing specifically, or?
Well, I mean, there's probably 100 things that I'll just tell you the thing that popped into my mind first because that's what it is to do. What came into my mind first was don't be afraid to make mistakes because
Mm,
I think that we all do, um, like for me, when I really began to get in touch with my deepest self, and I already always knew this as a child, as a very, pretty young, I would say early adolescent, I always knew that my path was writing. Sometimes people really do know their path early in life, and sometimes they don't, and they discover it later, and that's all good. But I always knew my path was writing. I always knew I didn't know what I had to say, but I knew that writing was my path. And so journaling sort of became the access then to what I actually wanted to say in the world, combined with being a psychotherapist and working in that healing environment for so many years. But did I make mistakes? Have I said things? Have I opened my throat as part of my healing journey and said things that I had to, revise or take back?
yep.
Um, because in the process it's like we're clearing the channel of our true being, and sometimes gunk comes out,
Yes.
and that's part of the learning too, that we're all human, that we're not perfect, we're not going to do it perfectly, and we don't need to expect that of ourselves, and we don't need to expect that of other people. And I think it creates a lot of compassion and a lot of humility. And of course, that's not to say that a lot of times what you do express is perfect and wonderful and helpful. But just to throw that in, that we're not going to do it perfectly, and it's okay. And what if we lived in a world where we looked at ourselves and each other that way? Like, you don't have to be perfect, and I don't have to vilify you or myself if I make a mistake. I can look for healing. I can look for what there is to learn, and I can grow.
Yeah. It's interesting. This is going right into what I had posted yesterday, and I was asking people, in the little bubble that they have on Instagram now, and they tell you to put your vibe for your music of the day. I'm like, no, I'm ready. Let's jump in and have more conversation around possibilities here. So one of the things that I shared was, how are you going to be someone's silver lining today? And people were starting to respond. And I'm like, yes, this is the type of thing that we want to talk about. So you are a silver lining. And thank you so much for your gifts and taking the writing and knowing who you were and carrying that through. 3 incredible books. We have in our show notes the latest book. I believe it's called America in Therapy. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So make sure that you go take a look at that. Any of Phyllis's social media or ways to contact her are in there as well. Phyllis, do you have any quick thoughts at the end here that you want to make sure that our audience hears from you before we depart?
Yeah, just another quick thought that came to my mind was something that I actually wrote in my journal yesterday. I was kind of all bent out of shape with all the shoulds that I haven't fulfilled yet in my life. And of course, there's an endless list of shoulds. I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing it fast enough. I'm not doing blah, blah, blah. And when I just asked for guidance about that, the answer was so clear. Come from your heart. And the question was, what does your heart say? What does love want to say to you now? Not my head, not my judgment, not my evaluation, but if I was just going to come from my heart today, what would that be like and what would that feel like? And I'm telling you, it changed my day.
And isn't that incredible in so many ways? We have the power to change our day every day by going from the mind down into our heart and soul.
Exactly.
And like that, life can change. And it does.
It does.
And we have that capacity and that power. So when we step into redefining the significance of you, time for you, by you, because of you, and you take time every single day just to be you, whatever that needs to sound like, feel like, and be like for you, I want people to practice that consistency over time and start super small, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this conversation. You are a light, and it has been a privilege and an honor to share space with you. And again, in the show notes, you can see how to contact and where to find Phyllis's book. Have a wonderful day, and thank you again for Phyllis for sharing your wisdom and your insight.
Thank you.